Olivia Bennett stood in the marble foyer of the Greenwich mansion. The echo of her heels the only sound breaking the silence. It was their 7th wedding anniversary. And Richard Langford had forgotten again. For the 3rd time. No flowers. No note. Not even a text. Just another, late meeting, email from his assistant that smelled like lies and expensive scotch. The house was perfect. As always. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto Persian rugs. The chef had left a chilled bottle of Dom Perignon with a card that read, "Courtesy of Mr. Langford." But the card was printed. Not handwritten. Everything here was staged. Like a showroom for a life that had stopped feeling real years ago. She walked upstairs. Heart hammering. In the master closet. Bigger than most New York apartments. She pulled out the small Louis Vuitton duffel she'd hidden behind winter coats. Into it went her passport. The emergency cash she'd squirreled away for 2 years. Her mother's pearls. And the single photo of her and her sister laughing on a Boston rooftop before Richard had slowly isolated her from everyone. Tears blurred her vision. But she didn't stop. She changed into jeans and a simple black sweater. Clothes Richard hated because they made her look ordinary. Good. Today she wanted to disappear. Downstairs. She paused at the security panel. Her finger hovered over the alarm code. One last breath. She punched in the override Richard thought only he knew. Then slipped out the side door into the 3-car garage. The Tesla he'd bought her as an apology last Christmas sat gleaming. She left it. Instead, she took the old Honda Civic her sister had begged her to keep registered in her name. Insurance in her maiden name. Smart. The engine coughed to life like a whisper of rebellion. As the wrought iron gates slid open one final time, Olivia glanced in the rearview mirror. The mansion shrank, its lights twinkling like a dying star. Slow motion in her mind. The pool where she'd cried alone on her birthday. The study where Richard's voice had cut her down for embarrassing him at the country club. The bedroom where love had turned into obligation. Her phone buzzed. Richard's ringtone. She silenced it, then blocked the number. Freedom tasted like salt and adrenaline. 3 hours later, the Boston skyline rose like a promise. Her sister's loft in the South End glowed warm through the rain-streaked windows. Mia opened the door in sweatpants, eyes widening at the sight of Olivia's tear-streaked face and the single duffel. Liv? Oh my God. They collapsed into each other on the worn leather couch. Mia didn't ask questions yet. She just handed her a mug of chamomile and a blanket that smelled like vanilla and safety. I left him, Olivia whispered, voice cracking for the first time. I really left. Mia squeezed her hand. You're home. We'll figure the rest out. But even as relief washed over her, fear coiled tight in her chest. Richard Langford didn't lose things. Especially not his trophy wife. She stared at the dark city outside, wondering how long she had before the storm hit. Somewhere in the night, her burner phone, another secret she'd kept for months, lit up with an unknown number. A single text. I know what he did to you. And I know what he did to my sister. If you want justice, be at Hanscom Field at 9 a.m. Black Gulf Stream. No one will ever hurt you again. AK. Olivia's thumb trembled over the delete button. But she didn't press it. For the first time in years, someone saw her pain. And that someone had a plane. She set the phone down, heart racing with a dangerous mix of terror and hope. Tomorrow, she would step into the unknown. Tonight, she let herself cry until the pillow was soaked. Because crying in safety felt like the first real thing she'd done in 7 years. The mansion in Greenwich was already lighting up with frantic calls. Richard's voice barked through speakers miles away. Find my wife. But Olivia Bennett was already gone. Driving toward sunrise. Toward whatever came next. Olivia arrived at the small private airstrip just outside Boston at 8:45 a.m. nerves buzzing louder than the jet engines warming on the tarmac. The black Gulf Stream looked like a sleek predator crouched under gray skies. A pilot in dark sunglasses nodded once, opened the door without a word. Inside, the cabin smelled of leather and quiet power. A single man sat in the rear, reading a tablet. Alexander Kane looked up, and the world narrowed. He was younger than she expected. Mid-30s, sharp jaw, stormy gray eyes that had clearly seen too much. His charcoal suit was tailored like armor. When he stood, the air seemed to shift around him. "Olivia Bennett," he said, voice low and calm, like a promise sealed in steel. "Alexander Kane, sit. We have 90 minutes to Teterboro." She hesitated, clutching her duffel like a shield. "How do you know my name? Why are you helping me?" Quote. He gestured to the seat opposite. "A crystal glass of water already waited. Because Richard Langford destroyed my sister. And because I've watched you endure the same slow poison for years. I don't offer charity. I offer alliance." The jet climbed smoothly. Below, Boston shrank to toy size. Alexander handed her a slim black folder. Inside, photos of Richard at charity galas with other women, bank records showing offshore accounts, and a single obituary clipping. Emily Kane, age 24, ruled suicide after personal setbacks. 12 years ago, Alexander said quietly. Your husband was her venture capital mentor. He promised her the world, took everything, then leaked lies that ruined her reputation. She jumped from the roof of his old Boston office. I was 23, just starting. I swore I'd bury him. Olivia's hands shook. The plane banked toward New York. You've been planning this? Quote, quietly acquiring shares in every company he touches. I own 49% of his empire already. Under Kane Corp. One more push and he falls. His eyes met hers. But I need someone who knows his secrets from the inside. Someone who deserves to watch him burn. Suspicion warred with the strange warmth blooming in her chest. Alexander didn't leer. He listened. When turbulence hit, his hand briefly steadied her arm. Professional. Protective. No pressure. Just presence. They landed in New Jersey. A black Maybach waited. As Manhattan. Alexander showed her a live feed. Richard on a frantic call. Demanding private investigators. He thinks you're hiding with Mia. We let him think that. For now. At a discreet midtown safe house overlooking the Hudson. Alexander poured her coffee himself. Stay here tonight. Tomorrow we talk details. No obligation. Doors unlocked. But if you walk out, the offer dies. Olivia stood at the floor-to-ceiling window. City lights glittering like scattered diamonds. Fear still clawed at her. But something fiercer rose. Curiosity. Anger. The spark of revenge she never knew she carried. She turned. Tell me everything. Alexander smiled for the first time. Small. Dangerous. Beautiful. Gladly. That night, cryptic texts lit her burner. Coordinates lit her burner. Coordinates. Evidence drops. A narrow miss when Richard's investigator nearly spotted her sister's building. Alexander arranged decoys. Fake Olivia sightings in Miami. To buy time. Every beat kept her pulse racing. Every shadow in the hallway made her jump. But his calm voice through the secure line anchored her. You're safe. Breathe. We move at dawn. By midnight, she realized she wasn't just escaping anymore. She was stepping onto a chessboard where she was finally a queen. Not a pawn. And the man across the board saw her. Not as a victim, but as the perfect weapon. Dawn painted the Hudson gold when Alexander knocked softly. Olivia had barely slept, mind spinning with the folder he'd left. She opened the door in yesterday's jeans. Hair wild, eyes fierce. He carried breakfast. Fresh croissants. Fruit. Strong espresso. And a new folder thicker than the first. Flashbacks first, he said. Dimming the lights. The wall screen flickered. 12 years ago. Young Emily Kane, brilliant coder, laughing at a rooftop party in Richard's old penthouse. Then cuts. Emails promising funding. Late nights. Her growing panic texts to her brother. He's changing the terms, I'm scared. Final clip. Security footage of Richard laughing as Emily's reputation was torched online. The jump. The funeral Alexander attended alone. Olivia covered her mouth. He told me Emily was unstable. That she stole from him. Alexander's voice stayed level, but his knuckles whitened. He's done it to 7 women, I can prove. You're number 8 on the list. He never finished. She stood, pacing. Why me? Why now? Quote, because you're the first who left on her own terms, and because when I bought your husband's debt last year, I saw your name on the life insurance policy he increased after your arguments. Alexander met her gaze. I won't let him cash it. The revelation landed like thunder. Olivia sank onto the couch. Flashbacks of her own life played unbidden. Richard's cutting remarks at dinner parties. The way he monitored her phone, for safety, the night he smashed her laptop when she mentioned starting a blog about women's stories. But here was proof. Irrefutable spreadsheets showing Richard's shell companies. Witness statements from silenced assistants. Even a hidden camera clip of him admitting the fraud that bankrupted a rival. You've spent a decade doing this? She whispered. Every second, Alexander replied. Kane Corp isn't just mine anymore. It's the noose. One board vote and he's out. But the vote needs a public face. Someone the press will love. A wife who finally speaks. Olivia felt the shift inside her like tectonic plates. No longer the quiet decorator of his perfect life. She was becoming the storm. They spent the day planning. Alexander taught her the numbers. The weak points. She added intimate details he could never know. Passwords. Hidden safes. The exact lie Richard told investors about a family emergency while he built the trap. Suspense beat after suspense beat. A tense drive where a black SUV tailed them. Alexander's security calmly lost it in traffic. A cryptic midnight call from Richard's lawyer that Alexander intercepted and turned into disinformation. Narrow escape when Olivia's sister texted a warning. Detectives at the loft. They moved her to a new safe house in under 30 minutes. By evening, Olivia stood taller. She rehearsed her lines in front of the mirror while Alexander watched. Arms crossed, pride flickering in his eyes. You're not just surviving him, he said softly. You're ending him. Their hands brushed, reaching for the same tablet. Electricity. She pulled back, cheeks warm. He didn't push, just offered a quiet, when this is over, you choose what happens next. You choose what happens next. Always. That night, alone on the terrace, Olivia stared at the skyline. The woman who had fled a mansion was gone. In her place stood someone who understood power, pain, and the intoxicating mix of justice, and the man who had quietly become her shield. Tomorrow they walked into the boardroom. Tomorrow Richard Langford would learn that the wife he broke had rebuilt herself sharper than any blade he ever wielded. The Manhattan boardroom on the 52nd floor of Kane Tower gleamed like a glass cage. City skyline burned behind floor-to-ceiling windows. 30 executives sat frozen as Olivia Bennett, maiden name restored on every document, stepped through the doors beside Alexander Kane. Richard Langford stood at the head. Mid-presentation, arrogance painted across his face. Until he saw her. Olivia? His voice cracked. What the hell is this? Quote. She didn't flinch. Alexander took the seat at the opposite end. Calm as winter. This, he said, is a change of control vote. Kane Corp now holds 51%. Effective immediately. Gasps rippled. Security guards quietly replaced overnight, blocked the exits. Olivia activated the massive screen. Evidence cascaded. Bank fraud. Forged signatures. The 7 women. Emily's final letter. Then her own voice. Recorded calmly. Richard Langford emotionally and financially abused me for 7 years. I have the diaries. The hospital visits he called accidents. The life insurance policy he doubled after our worst fight. Richard lunged forward. She's lying. She's unstable. Quote. Olivia stepped into the light. Say that louder. The microphones are live. CNN is waiting downstairs. Thanks to the press release Alexander timed for exactly now. Employees watched. Jaws dropped. As Richard's empire unraveled in real time. His arrogance shattered like the crystal water glass he smashed. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He tried charm, threats, bribes. Each met with Olivia's counter. You forgot our anniversary, she said. Voice carrying across the room. You forgot my dreams, you forgot I was a person. But I never forgot your passwords. Alexander remained the quiet storm. Quoting bylaws. Revealing the offshore accounts in his calm baritone that made every number feel like a nail in the coffin. When Richard screamed for his lawyers, Alexander simply slid across the termination papers already signed by the new majority. Media helicopters thrummed outside. Phones lit up with the viral clip. Olivia's clear statement. This is for every woman who was told she was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. Today we take the power back. Richard was escorted out in handcuffs. FBI tip from Alexander's quiet channels hours earlier. His humiliation played live on every screen in Times Square. The once untouchable mogul stumbling past reporters while Olivia stood tall on the balcony above. Wind whipping her hair like a victory flag. Inside, Alexander touched her shoulder lightly. You did it. The empire is yours to rebuild. Ethically. She turned, tears of triumph shining. We did it. The city skyline watched as they left together. Richard's empire crumbling behind them like a fallen tower. Olivia felt lighter than she had in a decade. The woman who once fled in a Honda now walked out of legend. But the real victory wasn't the boardroom. It was the quiet look Alexander gave her in the elevator. Respect, admiration, and something deeper neither of them named yet. Justice tasted sweet. So did possibility. 6 months later, the rooftop garden of the newly renamed Kane Bennett Tower glowed under golden hour light. Manhattan spread like a kingdom below. Cleaner, kinder, because the foundation they'd launched was already funding shelters, legal aid, and therapy for survivors nationwide. Olivia stood at the railing in a simple white sundress. Wind teasing her hair. No more hiding. No more performing. Beside her, Alexander Kane, sleeves rolled up, no tie, poured 2 glasses of the same champagne that once sat untouched in Greenwich. The foundation's first gala had just ended downstairs. Stories shared, checks written, lives already changing. Olivia had spoken without notes, voice strong, and the standing ovation still echoed in her chest. Alexander handed her a glass. You rebuilt this place in half the time I planned. Ethical AI division. Women-led board. Zero tolerance policy. It's beautiful. She smiled, clinking glasses. We rebuilt it. And us. Their romance had grown slowly. Deliberately. Like roots after fire. Late nights reviewing reports turned into shared dinners. Hand touches during strategy sessions lingered. One rainy evening he'd simply asked, "May I kiss you?" And she'd answered by stepping into his arms. No rush. No power games. Just 2 people who had survived the same war and chosen to build peace together. Laughter floated up from the garden. Her sister Mia dancing with Alexander's head of security. Now a friend. The city skyline blushed pink and gold. Olivia leaned into him, his arm circling her waist with quiet certainty. I still have moments, she admitted softly. Waking up afraid the door will slam. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Then I'll be there to remind you it's only the wind. And that you're free. Below. The Foundation's new app launched. Anonymous support for anyone escaping toxic cycles. Richard Langford's name was footnote in every article now. Disgraced. Bankrupt. Facing trial. Olivia felt no joy in his ruin anymore. Just closure. And the fierce protectiveness for every woman still trapped. They walked to a quiet bench overlooking the river. Subtle touches. Fingers brushing. Shared glances. The way he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Trust. Rebuilt brick by brick. Open-ended future, Alexander murmured. Echoing the story they'd lived. What do you want next? Olivia Bennett? Quote. She looked at the horizon. Bright. Limitless. More of this. Us. The work. Maybe. One day a little house outside the city where we plant tomatoes and never set another alarm for a board meeting we don't both love. He laughed. Low and warm. Done. As sunset painted them in amber. Their foreheads touched. The billionaire who saved her had been saved right back. By her courage. Her fire. The way she made power gentle. The audience. Millions who would one day stream this story. Would feel it. The triumph. The slow burn love. The justice that healed instead of just destroyed. Olivia Bennett and Alexander Kane stood together. City lights beginning to sparkle like stars they had earned. The past was ash. The future stretched wide open. Golden. Theirs. And somewhere far below, the world kept turning. Safer. Because one woman chose to fight. And one man chose to stand beside her. Not above. Fade to the soft sound of their shared laughter. The promise of tomorrow brighter than any mansion or empire ever could be.